Hi, welcome to Optimist Island. I'm Neil Wood, and today's guest is Pat McAuley, who is going to be talking about something that I am so passionate about, and that is better eating and plant-based foods and things like that, which tends to sound complicated, but after you listen to Pat, you realize it really isn't. And I'm sharing this on the show today because more and more people call me and say, Neil, I want to change my health. I want to feel better. I want to be more energized. And when I first got into this back in the 70s, which seems like a billion years ago, it was really a small percentage of people. But now, people live into their 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, and they realize that while I'm here, I want to feel better, I want to feel healthier, and that's what this show is about today. So tune in. I'm glad you're here. I think you're really in for quite a treat today. Pat, welcome
Neil,
to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's an honor to have you here, and we go back a little bit, and I've learned so much about healthier living from you. And I wanted to have you on the show because it's springtime, and so many people are saying, I want to eat healthier, I want to feel better, it's springtime, I want to look good at the beach and feel good and things like that. So a lot of people are looking into healthier living, getting away from whatever habits they have. What got you interested in healthier living? And how would you describe healthier living, by the way?
Yeah, I think I've always been interested in living healthier and, eating foods that make me feel good. I've always had a curiosity around it. And being an ex-athlete too, it was always part of my norm, what to eat to perform my best. Yeah. And it wasn't really until a few years after my sport ended, after college, that I really started to dive into, food's impact on my long-term health, not just my performance. So I just started experimenting a few years post-college. All I had known to that point was sort of this high-protein mentality that I think a lot of people are told, whether it's high-protein, low-carb, or high-protein, low-fat, or it's never low protein, right? It's always protein, protein, protein. And to me, that meant, lean meats and eggs and fish and chicken, right? That's all I ever ate. And I ate it because I thought that's what, would keep me healthy and strong. Yeah. I just started to experiment because I got to a point where I was just working so hard, in the gym and in workouts to maintain how I wanted to look and feel. And I just decided to try something new, and I stumbled into a plant-based diet. I didn't know it at the time, but I just simply replaced my breakfast at that time of 4 eggs with a smoothie, and that sort of sparked the whole transition that way. And it just made me feel so much better, and I started learning more and more, and that curiosity that I've always had led me down a path of learning a lot more about nutrition and all the science we have around it and the power it has on our overall health and longevity.
What difference did you notice? Did you have more energy, or how did it show? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, energy, no doubt about it. I wasn't reaching for the cup of coffee at 1, 2 o'clock after lunch. Mental clarity, performance, in the gym. I always had this idea that I'd be lacking things if I started eating, quote unquote plant-based. I thought, as somebody who takes my fitness seriously, that I wouldn't get enough protein, I wouldn't get enough nutrients. And experimenting with it, I found just the opposite. I got stronger, I got faster on my runs. But yeah, mostly it was just the energy, the way it made me feel, the sort of calmness it brought to me. That really got me interested in it. Yeah. And I followed kind of that when I try something, I generally go all in and give it a shot to see if it's going to work out. And 6 months into really following a whole food plant-based diet, things I had since I was a little kid, like asthma, allergies, some skin problems, and some other things just slowly went away.
Wow.
Things that I was always given the inhaler for, the EpiPen for, the cream for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when those things started going away, that's when I started taking it really seriously, because I knew it wasn't a fad or it wasn't a fluke. It was some real healthy stuff. Yeah,
I think back to 25 years ago, I lived up in the Wellesley area
yeah,
and used to go to a little store called Bread and Circus, which of course was absorbed and gobbled up and is now Whole Foods. But to try to find healthier foods back then was challenging.
yeah,
Now it's pretty common, isn't it? Because more and more people care about their health. When we think back to the 1940s, for people to maybe have a heart attack at 60, and the doctor would say, listen, just sit in your chair. You most likely live another couple of years and that'll be it. Now people are 60, 70, 80 years old and they're running marathons like the Boston Marathon yesterday.
Yeah.
And people really care about how they feel and how they feel in the morning with the energy and how they look. I mean, it's probably affected people's complexions. But when you talk about making a shake in the morning, I'm going to guess you're not talking about like Carnation Instant.
yeah. So funny you mentioned that because I used to do that as a kid.
Yeah.
Carnation with, God knows what else,
Right.
pancakes or,
A couple eggs,
eggs or whatever. Yeah. And I would do eggs, oatmeal, and a carnation. And I remember doing that all throughout middle school and high school, thinking I'm getting all this good protein. And no, I'm talking like a big fruit and green smoothie, a big blender of spinach and blueberries and bananas and raspberries, blackberries, some almond milk or oat milk I'm big into these days. I love oat milk, and blending it up, and that's that. Yeah.
Everything you just mentioned is available in local stores, supermarkets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like to point out, too, when it comes to what I'm talking about, and we can get into some other stuff later, but whole plant foods, a lot of people think it's hard. It's more expensive to eat plant-based, or it's hard to eat plant-based. And
I hear it all the time.
yeah, and it's like, no, if you're eating whole plant foods, the healthy stuff, the beans, the rice, the fruits, the grains, those are some of the cheapest foods on the planet. But when you get into the packaged foods and the expensive organic high-end granolas and the alternative meats and the things that fall under the vegan category, those are the expensive products. So if you stick with the real whole plant foods, it's the cheapest food on the planet.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What's the difference between vegan? I hear this a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm vegan. And I think there's some different variations of that, right? But would you explain that a little bit to our viewers, please?
Yeah, people throw the term around vegan pretty loosely when it comes to diet, and I like to use the term plant-based because I'm talking about health. And, you can be a very unhealthy vegan. You can eat, Oreos and Coca-Cola and things that just by default don't have animal products in them. Mm-hmm. That is not healthy, right? That's why I use plant-based, right? Whole plant foods is what, will bring you health. So the difference between vegan and plant-based is vegan is more of, a lifestyle of not consuming animal products, not wearing animal products, trying to reduce the amount of harm you do in the world, which I agree with.
Yes.
But I like to talk, with people about the health, and that doesn't mean Oreos and Coca-Cola. It means plants. Yeah.
Well, now, you just told me something I didn't know.
Yeah.
So when I love eating brown rice and making it so easy at home and broccoli and spinach and all those things, you're not asking people to stop shopping at the stores and completely change their ways. What I hear you suggesting is it's very easy to make that transition to plant-based.
Definitely. And it's, as you said, it's easier now than ever.
Yes.
If there are some things you don't want to give up, if you want a burger every now and then, or you want a sausage every now and then, there are plant-based alternatives to that now. And it's a massive, really fast-growing industry. Because people are becoming more and more aware of the health benefits. So you have, every now and then, it's a processed food, it's not the best, but every now and then if you want some sausage or a burger or whatever, Impossible Foods and Beyond Burgers and all these new companies that are developing meat from plant-based sources, you can do that. And I also like to tell people that, the meat and dairy category that I lived in for the first 25 years of my life is tiny compared to all of the amazing plant foods out there, the nuts, the beans, the fruits, the vegetables, the seeds, the grains. There's thousands and thousands that change seasonally and everything. So once you open yourself up to those other options, it becomes really easy, and you find you're not limiting yourself. You've actually opened yourself up to a whole new world of things to eat.
Wow. Are there favorite websites? What if somebody watches the show and they're like,
Yeah.
all right, that's it. I've been thinking about this for years. I want to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Where do they begin?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for a lot of people, it starts with just getting the knowledge, right?
Yeah.
I think, you sit here and you listen to me talk and you're like, all right, maybe. But I think for me too, it was about getting the science. It was about getting the knowledge. It was understanding, food's impact on your body and all the science we have in the research. So I encourage people to do their own research.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just take my word for it. Go and do the research because it's out there.
Yeah.
But you got to do it in the right place, right?
Yes.
You don't Google is bacon good, right? You're going to get 1,000 different perspectives, right?
Right.
You got to go to the real science and the peer-reviewed published journals and all that. And a great website I recommend people go to is nutritionfacts.org,
Yeah.
which is a nonprofit run by a guy named Dr. Michael Greger. And he basically takes every new nutrition peer-reviewed published study that comes out throughout the year, and he'll make a video on it and, talk about the findings and everything like that. And that's the best place to start. And you can literally search anything. You can search saturated fat, you can search bacon, you can search heart disease, whatever.
Wow.
And you'll see all kinds of videos and studies around that.
Yeah. A lot of times on the show we talk about attitude and taking up a new hobby, whether it's singing or last week's guest was about repairing bicycles to give to the needy. I'm a firm believer that you've got to find something that you're passionate about. And it doesn't matter what your past has been. To have people say, oh, well, I've been doing this for 25 years, I've been eating unhealthy. You can make a change if you're determined to do so. It's not complicated anymore.
Definitely.
But it has to come from within. The change starts here, right?
Definitely. I think the person's got to be ready, right?
Yes.
And on top of that too, I see a lot of people that they decide they want to make a change, and whether that's I want to go plant-based or I want to go to the gym every day, or whatever that change is, and they say, all right, I'm doing it, and then on day 4 when they mess up,
Yep.
They throw their hands up and they quit and they say, oh, that's it. I failed going plant-based, or I failed sticking going to the gym. And the message should just be more of doing the best you can and
Yes.
being gentle on yourself.
Yes.
And so my message too on the food side is not like you don't have to go plant-based or you don't have to become vegan. It's we know eating more plants will benefit your health.
Yeah.
Let's just try to eat more of them, right? And
Yeah.
don't be hard on yourself if you take a misstep here and there. Just keep moving forward. Keep incorporating more of those good foods into your diet, and eventually, a year down the line, you'll look back and say, "Wow, I'm eating my breakfast for the past 6 months has been completely different than it used to be." And
Yes.
so it's a process, but
Yeah.
be gentle on yourself.
Well, you just made me think of something that I've talked about many times on stage. Is about making progress. And if you decide, that's it, I'm going to try to get really healthy, and on day 4, when you don't get to the gym to work out and you say, oh, I'm going to have a burger, it's okay.
Yeah.
Be easy on yourself. We aren't designed, in my opinion, to be perfect. But one thing we can measure, and I thought of this when you said you look back a year, right, a year later, if you can measure progress, are you better than you were 1 year ago? I thought about this when I was working out this morning. Where were you a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago? Are you making progress towards your goals? Are you feeling healthier or fitter or more energetic? If so, great, good for you. If not, okay, make the changes you need to, because you have to take responsibility. At our age, at any age, I think over 19, we have to take responsibility for our life, for our happiness, for our wellness.
Yeah. In making what you just said the goal.
Yeah.
Not a weight, not a 6-pack, not a physical aesthetic, but being well.
Yeah,
Making that the priority.
yeah.
Yeah. just that shift in itself of saying, let me live so that I'm healthy for years to come.
Yes.
Versus, I want these biceps or some physical trait because it just leads you in a different direction.
Yeah. And what you have explained to me, and I never knew this about plant-based, it's really simple.
It's simple. It's simple, stupid. It's, it's what we were always told as kids, right?
Yeah.
Eat your vegetables, eat
Right.
your fruits and vegetables. And, I think everybody reaches a point of confusion these days when, again, I think like the words protein and carbs and fat have just created so much confusion.
Yeah.
And we tend to put foods in buckets of, when we eat chicken, we think protein. When
Right.
we eat beef, we think protein. When we eat fruit, we think sugar.
Yeah.
When we eat pasta, we think carbs, right? And
Yeah.
we're asking those questions instead of just saying, is this food that I'm about to eat going to promote my health? It's the only question. It doesn't matter the amount of carbs or the grams of protein or whatever. It's just, is this food health promoting?
Yeah.
And we have the data and the science to tell us what foods are good and what foods are bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to think back to the 70s when I first learned about granola, and
Yeah.
I remember one of the popular books back then was Sugar Blues by William Duffy. I read that in 1972. I was like, wow, sugar's in everything, even in tobacco and things like that. And that was the beginning of when I started taking better care of my health. And I was fascinated. Now, when I think back to the healthier people back then, they were, what would we call them, like granola guys?
Hippies.
Hippies,
Yeah,
yes.
they're
long
hippies.
beard down to here, look like ZZ Top. I
Yeah.
think that's the name of the band. I don't
Yeah,
know. And now you can look at somebody's eyes and you're like, wow, they look really healthy
Yeah.
compared to somebody who's not.
Yeah.
And the long beards are gone. You still have a little bit of one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But, but it's just so much more popular now. Instead of like maybe 1/10% of the world or the population, it's becoming more mainstream. But people are like, man, I want to live a long time, and while I'm alive, I want to feel really good.
Definitely. And I think on top of that, it's our generation, because we see everything that goes on, around the world, right? And a lot of the, people young kids look up to and we look up to, whether it's musicians or artists or somebody like Anthony Bourdain, right?
Yes.
And it's like people realize that without your health, you have nothing.
Right.
We
Yep.
have seen that with all these pop stars and people like Anthony Bourdain that we look up to, and we view them as having the ultimate life, right? And then understanding that they obviously struggled with their health.
Mm-hmm.
Our generation, I think, realizes, hey, health first, and then everything else.
Yes.
Because without your health, you really have nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you talk about this on your podcast?
Absolutely.
You do?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
talk about all this stuff. I talk about the science. I talk about people's stories mostly,
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get you on there and hear your story.
Oh,
but
thank you.
yeah, just telling people's stories in a relatable way. And
Yes.
people that have found health through various ways. Sometimes I'll have experts on and doctors on that, have spent their life studying nutrition and their findings, and people across the board. I love having entrepreneurs on too, but primarily it's around health and what we can do to stay healthy. And ultimately, I think for everybody at the end of the day, it's so you get to steal Ed Milet, who we were talking about earlier. His
boy.
term, max out our years
That's
here
right.
on the planet with
Yes.
with our loved ones. That's
Yes.
what it comes down to.
Thank you. About 3 weeks ago, you turned me on to, I love listening to YouTube and watching it, but especially listening when I'm working out. And you turned me on to Ed Milet, Mylett, and I've learned so much from him. Also Tom Bilyeu, Bilyeu. Two of my favorites on YouTube now. These guys are brilliant, and they really take care for their health and their well-being, which transcends into their families and their family life and their overall good life.
Definitely. That's hence that was my original Eat Green, Make Green, right?
Yes.
It's the idea that people think if you prioritize your health, you're wasting time, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to your career, right? Or time with your family.
Yeah.
And it's the opposite. When you prioritize your health and you feel good and you're present and you're alert, you become more efficient in the time that you are working. You become more productive and more present when you spend time with your family.
Yeah.
So it kind of boosts all of the other things in your life if you put your health first. So it's not a waste of time. It's actually, again, maxing out the other areas in your life.
How do people find you in terms of if they want to go to a website or podcast? How do they track you down?
EatGreenMakeGreen.com is
Okay.
kind of my personal website that pretty much everything I do is on there. Instagram is the biggest place for me, and I respond to messages and all that at EatGreenMakeGreen on Instagram.
Okay.
Those are probably the two best.
Yeah, you got a good page there.
Yeah, those are the two best places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you see going forward from here? Do you see more and more people taking care of their health?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's becoming cool to take care of yourself, which I think is really, really cool.
Yes.
And yeah, again, with the internet and the information we have available, people are in all the amazing documentaries that are coming out. I watched Heal that you mentioned, which I absolutely loved.
Yes. On Netflix, HEAL.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Joe Dispenza was in that.
He was,
Yep.
exactly right.
And taking, the information around food and the information from a guy like Joe Dispenza and the power of your brain and just believing you can heal
Yes.
as one of the steps to actually healing.
Yes.
And the power of the mind-body connection and the food you put in and all of that we have access to now
Yeah.
is just so incredible that 50 years ago, you didn't have access to. You were relying upon what you saw on TV and what you heard on the radio.
Yeah.
And now, it's there for you. If you choose to go
That's
seek
right.
it out, it's there for you. And yeah, people are just becoming more and more aware and in tune. And it's hard for companies too, on top of that, to kind of hide what they're doing. Everything is more transparent. And,
Yes.
I definitely think the future is people valuing their health more.
Yeah.
And specifically, I think in the food industry, very much more catered towards plants.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled that we're both authors, and I don't do a big thing promoting the books that I've written, and I know you don't either. And although I always recommend people read at least a book a month, most people read maybe one every couple of years. But nonetheless, if they don't have time to read, you just made a point that 50 years ago or 20 years ago, when did YouTube explode? 10, 15 years ago? And now we could create a video at home, right, just using the iPhone, and have it on YouTube within half an hour. We couldn't do that years ago. So there's so much knowledge out there now. And one of the things I admire about you, you live what you talk about. You walk the walk. Now we've heard of many people over the years who talk the talk. They'll tell you what to do. And I think of the first time when I took up jogging back in the 70s, I had a bit of a muscle pull. And I went to see the doctor. I was in the military. And I went to see the doctor, and he had a big fat belly.
Yeah.
And he had his pack of cigarettes on the desk. And he said, well, if that's sore because of running, just stop running.
Yeah.
Let me give a prescription. He gave me some painkillers. People have really changed. I think of my doctors now, they're healthy, they're fit, they're alive, they're vibrant. They are walking the walk.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. And that's one reason I wanted to have you on the show, because you're a good role model.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I mean, this has all been a result of my personal journey, and just getting the word out that I wish I had 10 years ago, that I have a lot more control over my health than I think, and so do you.
Yeah.
And the science tells us that, each day over and over again with the new findings that we're seeing, and it's just cool. And I walk the walk, but I also screw up too, and that's something I like to point out. Again, to the point of just doing the best you can.
Yes.
And being gentle on yourself. That's part of being healthy, right? If you stress over things, you're just gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We weren't designed to be perfect.
Exactly.
You know, as long as we learn a lesson from it,
Yep.
I'm okay with goofing up and falling down. You just have to get back up and say, okay, what do I do differently next time?
Yeah.
Healthy, now we used to call them health food restaurants. What's around these days? You had a restaurant in Quincy
Yep.
that you tried to experiment with for summer.
Yeah, for not a summer, we were like October to January.
To experiment and see if it was popular. And?
Yeah, it was popular.
Yeah.
It was very popular. Yeah, so our concept was to make plant-based eating more approachable to everybody, right?
Yeah.
So our whole idea was to recreate foods that people are used to in a social setting that people are used to, but we just make it a little healthier. So
Yes.
we'd make our pizza, we'd make the cheese for it out of cashews, and we'd make dough from scratch, you know, so it's the healthiest pizza you could get, and it still hit all those flavors and tastes that you like. We had an amazing chef.
Yes.
And yeah, in tacos and burgers and, you know, using a fruit called a jackfruit for, you know, the meat texture in your taco, and
Yeah.
giving people everything they want, sacrificing nothing, you know, not their social life, not the foods they enjoy, giving them exactly what they're used to and what they want, but in a way that's better for them and better for the planet as a whole. And that was the goal. And yeah, it was extremely popular, and we got all kinds of national attention, and yeah, we'll be rolling one out in Boston to a bigger demographic, and the goal is to do a lot of them. So
That's so cool.
yeah,
Thank you for being on the show.
thank you for having me. This was awesome.
After talking with you and learning so much, I know this is such a big interest in the world, and especially in a community like Hingham and some of the surrounding towns on the South Shore. People are willing to put in the work. Just sometimes they're not sure, where do I begin? And you've answered that today, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Pat.
Thank
A
you.
pleasure.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank you.
likewise.
Thanks so much for watching this episode. I really appreciate it. It was a thrill having Pat McAuley, who's the author of Eat Green, Make Green. And I love talking to my guests who walk the walk. A lot of people in life will tell you what to do, but they don't actually live what they're talking about. And Pat's one of those people that walks the walk. And you can see how energized he is, and he just feels good naturally. My goal is to help you improve your life. And if you can just make subtle changes in your life, remember what we said during the show. It's not about being perfect. Nothing's perfect in life. But if you can make a little bit of progress, who knows how much better you can feel in 3 months, 6 months, a year from now. Subtle changes, that's what we talked about today. Glad you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.